Hi, welcome to Determining the Mindset. My name is Dr. Cindy Zhang, and this channel is to empower women to be dreamers who take action. Today, we're very fortunate to have Karyn Beach with us, and she is an inspiration because she has experienced so much in her life, and today we're going to tell her story. So, Karyn, can you tell us a little bit of what you do right now?
My degree is in journalism, but I didn't really stay there. I transferred into training and development, and I've been there for like 20 years. So don't ask how old I am. But I've lived in a lot of different places, from California to Maryland, Arizona, before I settled in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I still have a day job. I like getting paid regularly, and I'm an instructional designer. But about 10 years ago, I won $100,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So half of that went to taxes, paid bills, gave my father some money, and the last thing I did was buy and furnish my house. I put a down payment on a house. And that's just one of the things I've done in my life. After I did that, I decided that what do most people want to know about? The subject they're most interested in is themselves. So I got my life coaching certification and still see clients, on a regular basis. I don't do it a lot. I haven't pursued that a lot. What I am pursuing and that I love to do is podcasting. So right now, a lot of my time is spent on the Fun, Feisty, Fabulous podcast. So that's what I'm doing.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So as I was looking over your website, which is very fun, feisty, and fabulous, you're actually more towards women that are in their 40s. And it's interesting that because as you're a life coach yourself, I'm just very interested in what issues do people that around 40 kind of encountering, and what kind of issues do you help them with?
When you get around 40, and my therapist also confirmed this, you get into the second part of your life. Either you've had children and they're of a certain age, or you've had a career and you've been in it a while and you're ready to do something else, but you're not sure what that thing is. And even for people who are sure of what it is, they don't know the steps, or they have a lot of internal barriers. Can I do this? What if it doesn't work? All of those things come into play. So what I do is help women get over those hurdles. Okay, so that, because you do have the time, you do have the talent, you do have the ability, and you just need to harness that and use it for, whatever it is you want to do.
Wow, that's good. Yeah. So how, as you said, you are balancing between a day job and also doing your business. You've been doing that for 10 years. So how do you balance your time? Because that's kind of crazy. Nobody can I don't know if you have kids, or if there's somebody there that help you do the chores at home, but
No, I am truly a one-woman show. No kids, no husband, no dates for a while. But anyway, which makes it a little bit easier. The struggle that I have is that people that do have those things assume that all I have is time. It doesn't, I'm just living free and fabulous, but I've had times of unemployment, and there's just me. I recently got a bad let me put it this way, I was recently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh, wow.
And there's nobody here to help me. There's nobody here to just even hold me and tell me it's all right. So when you do everything on your own, you carry a large weight on your shoulders. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. So is there any like things that you do that helps you throughout the day, like organize your time and be able to decrease your stress?
I am very, very organized. There's an app, and if you're listening, I could use you as a sponsor. There's an app called Todoist.
Mm-hmm.
And I live by that every day. I have recurring tasks for things that I do every day. This interview was listed on there. I can put dates and times on things. It helps me stay focused and stay on track. Last week, I interviewed 4 people for my podcast.
Wow.
So now I have 4 interviews to edit and write show descriptions for and all of that. Mm-hmm. So it keeps me pretty busy. But then I also value times with my girls. I still go out with my girls. I have a Groupon for a facial I need to schedule. And in September, my birthday is September 21st. I tell that to anyone. And for my birthday week, I took a vacation and I went by myself to Myrtle Beach.
Oh, wow.
And I had a really nice birthday dinner by myself. I did, walked on the beach and did all sorts of things. And it's a kind of empowering to do that because so many people think, oh, I could never travel by myself or I could never do something like that on myself. But you know, I had a lot of time to reflect. Mm-hmm. I could do whatever I wanted to do for as long as I wanted to do it without having to worry about what somebody else wanted to do. So it was a very nice, very relaxing vacation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you did a little bit of meditation and probably get like some refreshed ideas, right? Going.
I get refreshed ideas, but one of the things I like about my birthday is, for me, it's my personal new year. Mm-hmm. So at some point during my vacation, because I do this every year, I'll sit down and I'll think, where do I want to be this time next year? Mm-hmm. What do I have to do to get to that point? Mm-hmm. And I'll write my goals out and all of that based on where I want to be a year from now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's true for all business owners or starting or like even years into the business. Writing goals are so important. So we're coming to the end of the year, right? So
if it's worth doing, it's worth writing down.
Mm-hmm. So what are your goals for the next year, if you don't mind sharing a few?
I just went to the doctor. My main goal is to lose weight. I've never been this heavy in my life. I've got about 90 pounds to lose. Mm-hmm. So that is my first goal, not just to lose weight, but to get healthy. Mm-hmm. It sounds weird, but I hate water. I can go days without drinking water. And, you know, they did some tests on me, told me how dehydrated I was and all that. So I really need to focus on my health. The second thing I'm focusing on is getting out of debt. I am almost completely out of debt, but my house and my car. Mm-hmm. But I'm on the verge of not having credit card debt, medical debt, any other kind of debt. So those are my 2 goals. And I try not to have more than 2 or 3 goals, because if you have too many goals, you kind of get too spread out and you don't accomplish anything. Yeah. So after I accomplish those 2, if there's still time in the year, the third thing I'm sort of doing is I'm always trying to promote my podcast. because I've done it for a year. I have it to a place where I want a bigger audience.
That's awesome. So how do you what kind of stories are you looking for in your podcast? Because I know that you're such a very good storyteller. From just reading your website and talking to you, you've been through so much. So how do you tell other people's story?
Well, you know, one of the good things about being a podcaster and interviewing people is you have to have a certain curiosity about people, what makes them tick, what keeps them going. So I try to find guests that have information that women in my demographic, and basically all women and men, would be interested in. So like during the 4 people I just interviewed, I interviewed one woman about the law of attraction and how that really works, because you hear it all the time, but how can you actually put it into practice? I had another guest on a similar vein, and she talked about gratitude. And I write a blog with every post, and in my blog I got to tell the story of how when I moved to Charlotte, I had to use my dad's car that he loaned me, an 88 BMW. It was 2006. It had no air condition, and it was all black interior. So you can imagine what it's like in Charlotte, North Carolina, when it's like 95 degrees outside and 90% humidity. I wanted to strangle people who had their windows rolled up because I knew they had air conditioning. But, you know, I read about the law of attraction, being grateful, and I started thanking my car. You know, thank you for getting me to point A to B. Thank you for allowing me the freedom to get where I want when I want, instead of having to wait for a bus. And at first it was kind of sarcastic, sort of facetious. Oh, thank you, Carl. Thank you so much. But after a while, it sort of took. And then out of the blue, a friend of mine from California called and said, hey, my cousin lives in Charlotte and he sells cars.
Oh, wow.
So if you're ever in the, you know, need a car, you can call him. And so I ended up in a brand new, fully loaded Mazda 6, which I loved, and in affordable payments and everything. So it worked out. And, you know, maybe it would have happened anyway. But I think that me being grateful and stopping complaining about what I had really helped.
Yeah.
And then I had a woman that was on talking about she has a podcast called One Extraordinary Marriage, and her husband challenged couples to do a 7-day sex challenge.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I have all sorts of guests on. So even if you're not 40, eventually you'll be 40. So
yeah, that's so interesting. And that's what I love about like doing my YouTube channel and podcast, is because it's so much fun. Every week we have different guests on, and you're just learning about different things that you've never thought it really exists out there.
Exactly. Yeah. And and the good thing about being a podcaster, a YouTuber, is you get to introduce this to other people. So you find something and you're like, I can share this with my audience, with other people. And there's something powerful in that, being able to pass on something that other people could benefit from.
That's true. So like, a question that I'm curious for you, because you probably, like in the beginning, you were in journalism, and then now you're totally changed to become a kind of a business owner, a life coaching business owner. That's a bold move. Like, how did you started to make that change, and is there any difficulties that you've had in between, and how you overcome it?
Well, I spent the first couple of years out of college in journalism, but I wanted to do crazy things like eat, put gas in my car,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that I wasn't really doing as a radio news producer.
Uh-huh.
So I was always good with writing. I was always good with computers. So I ended up moving into the field of training and development.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a while, trained other trainers, trained people how to use different software, wrote training materials, and did all that. And I still do that in my day job.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, you kind of get burned out. And I needed something else to do. And I really love training. So I thought, well, what do people want to know most about? Because it got to the point where I'm in the bathroom getting ready to go teach a class, and there's people outside of the bathroom going, oh God, I gotta go this training class. And I wanna say, I'm here. The person that's going to teach you is here in the bathroom listening to you talk about how much you don't want to go to my class.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, well, what would engage people? What would they really be interested in? And I realized that everyone is interested in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I teach people about themselves? And that's how I came through to doing life coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And with podcasting, it kind of comes full circle because a lot of my broadcast training I can use in podcasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. So how so once you started, like, probably a few years ago, right? 2006 you started your
Well, I started 2006, I moved to Charlotte.
Okay.
2007, I was on the game show. 2008, I got my life coach training. So probably not till through 2009. And frankly, when I first started, it was challenging, and I put it aside for a minute before I came back to it because everybody's a life coach.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody puts that on their door, whether they have training in it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I had trouble figuring out what my niche should be.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started podcasting and kind of focusing on professional women 40 and up who are making a life transition, that made sense. That's a good niche to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I sort of resurrected my coaching and started really doing that and doing the podcast, kind of serving that same audience.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's good. I think it takes time to find the niche, right? Like
it takes time, and you have to do it yourself. It's one of those things that has to, I believe, come from within, because everybody can tell you what the latest, greatest thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's the bandwagon, let's jump on it. But what's going to make you successful? Is what speaks to you.
Mm-hmm.
What speaks to you individually.
Mm-hmm.
Not what everybody else is doing, not what the flavor of the month is. But if I'm a coach and I'm talking to you for a half hour on the phone, it doesn't make sense for me to do anything that doesn't resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm podcasting and you're listening to my podcast, you can tell if I'm being genuine or if I'm just kind of going with the flow as I go along. Mm-hmm. So to me, everything I do comes out of a place within and without. And I really feel the need to be transparent with people and to be real with my audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's for me, that's one of the hardest things that I am trying to find is my niche, right? But I definitely need to kind of ask myself some of those inner questions, right?
Just think about, if you're going to do that, think about you.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the hurdles you face.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what keeps you up at night. Think about what motivates you, what pushes you forward. And within all of that, you'll probably find what you're looking for.
Oh, wow. That's great advice. Thank you. So, so after you got on the, Who Won a Millionaire show, tell us more about that. That's really, crazy.
Okay, so ever since I was very young, I've been going around with a head full of absolutely useless information. I just got through watching Jeopardy before this call. So I'm like a trivia geek.
Mm-hmm.
Like if anything remotely interests me, I remember it.
Wow.
So I always said, if I was going to go on a game show, there have to be two criteria. Number one, I have to be the only guest, because otherwise you're spending too much time trying to buzz in before somebody else.
Uh-huh.
Number two, I need multiple choice questions, because that way, if I'm not sure, I can kind of work through it. And I did that with a couple questions on Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm at home, I'm on my computer, working, doing something on my computer, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is on in the background. And all of a sudden they say they're coming to Charlotte to audition. So I marched into my boss's office the next day and said, I'm going to be late on this day because I'm going down here to audition.
Uh-huh.
And my boss, who ended up being one of my lifelines, she said she was going to go with me. But something came up at work and she let that take precedence over going. And the first lesson you can learn from that experience is, if you want it, you make it happen. Mm-hmm. You don't let anything get in the way of making it happen. So I got down there early. I was dressed. Unlike right now, I had makeup on. So I went down there. And another thing people don't realize is they start interviewing you. They start auditioning you when you come in the room. Wow. So there were a lot of people who exhibited a bad attitude, tried to be confrontational with the people that were kind of moving us around. Mm-hmm. And it's like, whether you pass the test or not, they're not going to have you on the show. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep that in mind, that people are always watching you. Yeah. Always, even when you don't think they are. So I passed the test. I went back to talk to the producer, because you have to talk to them for a minute. And so I'm like, okay, let me make them laugh. So they're like, what's the first thing you say to Meredith Vieira, who was the host at the time, if you get in the hot seat? I was like, well, maybe in front of a national audience I could find a date, because I'm not working well on my own. And they're like, what would you do if you won $1 million? Mind you, I'm still driving my dad's car. I'm like, I would get a car in air conditioning, because I'm tired of doing the dog thing and just hanging my head out the window for air. So, and then they said they could keep you in the pool for 3 years. I'm like, okay, not expecting a call. A couple weeks later, they call me. And they're like, come up, we want you to shoot the day after Labor Day. So I went up, and an older gentleman from my job was like, did you ask your dad? And I said, no, I'm sure he's busy. He's like, trust me, ask your dad. He'll be there. So my dad came down, and he sat behind me. And had our father-daughter connection been stronger, I would have won $250,000, because he knew the answer to that question. Yeah. I didn't. So
wow, that's awesome. I love it.
So it was a great experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
the government took half my money, though.
Oh man, yeah, I know. Taxes.
Yeah, I should have used them as my lifeline.
Yeah. So how about your traveling experiences? That's pretty interesting having to been kind of traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? From the West Coast to the East Coast. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I started in the East Coast. Well, actually, I started in the Midwest. We always have this conversation. Where is Ohio? It's not really the East Coast, but it's not really Midwest. So I'm from Cleveland.
Okay.
And to be very specific, I'm Karyn Beach from Beechwood, Ohio. So wow. my mother was Betty Beach on Beacon in Beechwood. Yeah. So I was there.
Beach under you.
Yeah, exactly. I go to Myrtle Beach and like everything around me is monogrammed. It's like, I'm like, okay, I'll get all this beach stuff. But I grew up in Cleveland. I got really, really tired of being cold. And then, actually, before I moved west, I moved to Iowa for my first broadcasting job. But then I was going to have to go from the middle of nowhere in Iowa to the middle of nowhere in Mississippi. And how long was I going to have to do that? So that's when I decided to get into training.
Okay.
So I lived in Arizona for about 9 months. Didn't like that. Came back east. I was in Maryland for about 10 years. And then I started screenwriting because I took a class. I was supposed to take a class and then they canceled it. But I'm like, I've got an idea and I'm just going to read this book and write it. So I loved the process of writing a script. And I was like, what the hell? So I'm just going to move to LA. So that's what I did. I moved to LA and I was there for 2 years. I got a short film made.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's called P&OK, Primary Next of Kin. And it features a performance by Danny Glover.
Oh, okay.
But I hated getting it made because once you sell a script if you're not in TV, if you're in movies and you sell a script, once you sell it, it's no longer yours.
Oh,
so they can do whatever they want to it. And some of the changes I liked, some made me cringe.
Okay. So we can, like, if we search for it, we can watch that video.
Yeah, I'm on IMDb.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And a couple years later, my friend's mom ran into Danny Glover at an event. And she's like, my son's friend. And he's like, really? And he remembered me.
Oh, wow.
Which is cool. The other thing we have in common is my dad looks just like Danny Glover. So I used to have a picture of him at work. And people would come by my desk and be like, oh, you have an autographed picture of Danny Glover. And I'd be like, no, I have an autographed picture of my dad. I don't know why he autographed it, but he did. To Karyn from Dad. Because, like, if he didn't have his name there, I might forget who he is.
That's pretty awesome. I love it. Your family is full of jokes, probably.
They're full of something.
Yeah. So how can you tell us where will people find you if they want to look for you for life coaching or just more questions about who you are and just maybe invite you as a guest on podcasts?
I would love to do that. I love talking. I have a microphone in my desk at work. It's a fake microphone. Sometimes I pull it out and just talk into it, just because I like talking into a mic. But anyway, if you wanted to find me about coaching, about my podcast, it's all on funfeistyfab.com. And my podcast is also available on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and wherever quality podcasts are found.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Karyn. It was so fun talking to you. And
it was so fun being here. Okay, yeah. And I just have to say, you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. It's almost time for me to go to bed. So that's that explains this. This is Karyn, no makeup, bad lighting. So
that's where all the natural, like the natural of your unique self comes out, you know?
Yeah, but you know, in better lighting, I'm probably a little bit cuter.
Got it. Thank you so much, Karyn. And this is Determining the Mindset and is sponsored by Cozy Physical Therapy. Thank you for listening. And my name is Dr. Cindy Zhang.